probably heard of Gurgaon. It was supposed to be India's Millennium City, right? The absolute poster child for a new, aspirational India. It sold this incredible dream of a global lifestyle, living in these gleaming glass towers, and millions of people bought into it. But behind that shimmering skyline, well, there's a much, much darker story.
Because that's really the heart of the matter here. What happens when that dream becomes a gilded cage, trapping the very people who poured their entire life savings into it? This is that story.
All right, so let's get into it. To really understand how everything went so wrong, we have to wind the clock back to the early 2000s. Gurgaon was just exploding. It went from a quiet little suburb of Delhi to a massive metropolis almost overnight. And here's the thing. There was very little government planning. It was a free-for-all, driven almost entirely by private developers.
And the sales pitch. Wow, it was powerful. Developers were packaging this dream in these glossy brochures, promising infinity pools, Italian marble, a life just minutes away from a Fortune 500 company. You have to understand, this wasn't just about buying a flat, it was about buying into a brand new identity, this globalized, successful Indian middle-class dream.
So the growth was completely chaotic, and it all followed this simple and honestly very seductive model. In the early 2000s, huge global companies set up shop, and private developers basically took over. Then, by the mid-2000s, this buy now, we'll build it later idea became the norm. Buyers were paying up front, pretty much funding the construction of their own homes. And as all this money poured in, property prices just shot into the stratosphere. On paper, it looked like a wild success, but in reality, a ticking time bomb was being set.
And that bomb? Well, it started to go off when the first real sign of trouble appeared. Silence. All across the city, on these massive project sites, the constant noise of construction, it just faded away, and then it stopped completely. Promised delivery dates came and they went, and this exposed a deep, systemic rot that nobody wanted to see.
The gap between what was promised and what people actually got is just heartbreaking. I mean, look at a typical case. A home promised for 2015 is still just a concrete shell a decade later. The fancy clubhouse and pool they showed in the brochure, it's a wasteland. And the buyer, they've already paid 95% of the cost. So now they're trapped paying a mortgage on a ghost apartment while also paying rent just to have a roof over their head. It's a nightmare.
And please, don't think this is just a few isolated cases. We are talking about a massive human crisis here. An estimated 70,000 homebuyers in Gurgaon alone are caught in this exact trap. Their life savings, their investment for their family's future, all of it has turned into a dead asset.
But wait, here's the real catch. Even for the people who actually got their homes, the world-class city from the brochures was a complete illusion. The construction just blew past any kind of basic civic infrastructure. So every monsoon, the city floods. There's a severe water crisis, forcing these luxury apartments to rely on expensive private water tankers. And daily power cuts? Yep, that's just a normal Tuesday.
On top of all that, buyers were often getting completely trapped by the fine print. Let's break down one of the worst offenders, the super area scam. See, you thought you were paying for your apartment, right? Nope. You were also paying for a share of the lobbies, the staircases, the hallways, all the common areas. This meant the actual livable space you got, your carpet area, could be up to 35% smaller than the area you paid a fortune for.
So, the big question is, how did this happen? How did it get so bad on such an epic scale? Well, this wasn't an accident. It wasn't just a market downturn. What the sources show is that this was the predictable, absolutely inevitable result of a deeply, deeply flawed system. It was basically a giant financial house of cards. Here's how it worked. A builder would take all the money from the buyers of, say, Project A, but instead of using it to build Project A, they divert it to go buy land for a future Project B. Now, this whole scheme only works as long as new money is constantly pouring in and property prices keep going up and up and up. The second the market stagnated, the music stopped, and the whole thing collapsed like dominoes. So the crucial point here is that this was a failure at every single level. You had a corrupt nexus, an alliance between builders and officials that let them bend all the rules. The main real estate regulation, RERA, was supposed to protect buyers, but it just came way too late for many of these older projects. And the entire market model was built on the insane illusion that property prices would just rise forever.
Which brings us to the real legacy of Gurgaon's chaotic boom. And it's not just about the stalled buildings or the crumbling roads. It's about something much deeper. It's about the profound, devastating human cost of it all.
Ultimately, this isn't just some business case study. It's a story about the complete erosion of trust. It's about the shattering of a dream for tens of thousands of ordinary people who did nothing more than believe in the promise of a better life, and they invested everything they had in that promise.
Today, Gurgaon is still a paradox. It's a hub of incredible economic opportunity, but it's also this powerful, unavoidable cautionary tale. And that leaves us with this final multi-billion-dollar question. Can a city that was built on such a shaky foundation ever truly fix its flaws? Can it finally deliver on the promise it made all those years ago?